नमस्कार, मैं आरबी सिंह यादव और आप देख रहे हैं मेरा यूट्यूब चैनल आरबी सिंह यादव एडिटर। आज मैं दयालबाग विश्वविद्यालय के कार्यक्रम में पहुंचा, जहां पर मेमोरियल जुबली लेक्चर था और ये लेक्चर मोहाली के एक प्रोफेसर के द्वारा दिया गया। मैं इस मामले में ज़्यादा न बोल करके, चूँकि मेरा वीडियो काफ़ी लंबा हो चुका है, पूरी रिकॉर्डिंग कवर की है मैंने, तो मैं अब सीधे जुबली हॉल जो दयालबाग का है उसमें ले चलता हूँ आपको, और वहाँ पर फिर सुनते हैं चीफ गेस्ट का पूरी बात। उन्होंने जो बात की वो पूरी मानव श्रृंखला कहाँ से शुरुआत होती है, कैसे होती है, यहाँ तक कि प्राकृतिक जो परिदृश्य है उसका पूरा विस्तार से चर्चा की। वो आप देखिए मेरे साथ और वीडियो को पूरा देखिए, समझ में आएगी सारी बातें। बहुत अच्छी इंग्लिश में उन्होंने साधारण सिंपल सी भाषा, जो अंग्रेजी की सिंपल भाषा होती है, उसमें पूरी व्याख्या की है। आप देखिए, चलते हैं। और चैनल अभी तक सब्सक्राइब ना किया हो तो ज़रूर कर लें।
Colleagues, students, and many others belonging to the fraternity of Dyabar Educational Institution that is joined online. I feel blessed today to have gotten this opportunity of speaking before you, and feel humbled after listening the names of the galaxy of speakers who have spoken on this occasion earlier. I salute to the thought and philosophy of this institution of providing high quality education at a low cost with an aim to make real human being, or so-called superhuman. I remember the lines of famous Hindi poet Gopal Das Neeraj, and he said, एक मजहब कोई ऐसा भी चलाया जाए जिसमें इंसान को इंसान बनाया जाए. I see that philosophy being realized in this institution. And therefore, it's a great privilege for me to be here and to feel the ambience, cultural and educational ambience of this institution, which takes me back to my own alma mater, which is Banaras Hindu University, which was set up with the same kind of lofty ideals of providing the citizens or the human beings who can serve the country with full commitment, values, character, morality, and dedication. Today's talk is based on my reflections of my past journey in science, and off and on I have been thinking, where are we heading for? The kind of science the human beings have been doing over millennia, the science which has been recognized, applauded, has it eventually led to the welfare of the society? Or was it a transient welfare of the society and eventually turning into some kind of menace for the society or human being or our own existence? With some of those ideas, I tried to weave this talk around the human civilization an eternal journey of inquiry, ingenuity, and innovation. Now, if you look at the human being and animals, we see a huge diversity of animal kingdom. And Homo sapiens happens to be the one species out of thousands of species which are available. Now, if you look around, the hundreds of years or thousands of years of developments which have happened on this planet, and if you see what is the contribution of human being and what's the contribution of rest of the animals, then you realize that all what we see is because of the contribution of human being. There is very little creativity from the sides of thousands of species of animals. And the reason is that we are blessed with a unique kind of capacity in our brain. It is not only large, it has mechanism of advanced reasoning, abstract thinking, and problem solving, enabling complex functions which are not possible with the animal brain. If you look at the size of the human brain as well as the last ancestors, so-called the chimpanzee, you see the huge difference in the size. And if you look at the rhesus monkey, it is still smaller. And if you talk about rest of the animals, the size of the brain is much, much smaller. Now, if you try to remember the examples of animal creativity, what you see is some kind of beautiful spider webs, or these nests created by weaver bird, honeybee colonies, and some of the colonies of termites or leaf cutter ants. These leaf cutter ants can make big colonies underground, but that is it, not beyond. But if you look at the contributions of humans, human intellect, this is enormous. And this is an incessant pursuit of inquiry, ingenuity, and innovation. This is for understanding ideas and solutions, where inquiry stands for asking questions and seeking knowledge. Ingenuity is our ability to use creative and resourceful thinking to develop new products or processes, whereas innovation applies these insights and skills to improve existing products and processes. Now, let us try to cover or have a glimpse of the milestones of human civilization, which started by having a control on fire, and then gradually the skills developed, writing, development of the wheel provided the mobility. Bronze Age provided our ability to make variety of kind of utensils and armaments to fight wars. Iron Age continues with that, making use of the iron. Silk Road, Renaissance, scientific revolution, industrial revolution, electricity, aviation, computers, space exploration, internet, and today, the artificial intelligence. Let's start with the basic things. From observation of nature to developing deployable products and technologies. It all starts with establishing cause and effect relationships and asking basic questions that why does apple fall down, doesn't go in any other direction? Why does the sky look blue, not any other color? Now these basic questions have led to variety of applications and development of variety of appliances and variety of devices and instruments which have enriched the humanity in its development and in its civilization. If we remember, try to recollect some of the leading scientists who address some of the basic questions, the curiosity driven science. Then the names of Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Marie Curie, Galileo, Charles Darwin, Stephen Hawking, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Copernicus, Faraday, Pasteur, Leonardo da Vinci, Aristotle, Niels Bohr, Max Planck, and plenty of these names are there. You do not associate any device or invention specifically to their names. You associate some kind of phenomena, some kind of formulae, some kind of equations to their names. But they have had huge impact on the scientific developments. Now coming to the inventions which have transformed our lives, you can easily connect yourself with the development of submarines, calculator, piano, thermometer, roller skates, hot air balloon, railway locomotive, stethoscope, bicycle, computer, sewing machine, glider, typewriter, telephone, phonograph, light bulb, electric iron. Huge list of inventions are there. And there are inventors. Now if we talk about the difference between invention and innovation, the next term is innovation. The creation or discovery of a new product, process or idea. And when it occurs, when a new idea strikes, whereas innovation is transformation of an existing idea, product or process into something new. It occurs when there is a need of improvement. Written below is an irony that the inventors get the credit while innovators make the money. Genesis of invention lies in the pursuit of original questions, whereas the genesis of innovation lies in improving the invention to meet user needs and make money. Let us go back to the time immemorial, when the life evolved on this earth, starting from unicellular organism, turning into mollusks, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, monkeys, apes, and eventually human being. Human being appeared about 200,000 years ago. Appearance of Homo sapiens and today's civilized human being. You can see the picture below, that the Homo sapiens of Neolithic age and then turning into Elon Musk, we call the most evolved and most intellectual human being of today. This is where the human civilization has moved. The nomadic society of the hunter and gatherers, they suffered the insecurities of food and safety. Like animals, the human beings at that time did not know what is going to come tomorrow. So those insecurities of food and safety or security of life, they were always there like for any other, animals. Now, our ability in the Stone Age, our ability to control fire, fire was there, natural fires used to happen, but the ability to control fire, create fire and use it in a desired manner, that appeared about 1.4 million years ago. And then in the Stone Age, so many implements were developed, but you can see that many of these implements were to save oneself from other animals and to kill other animals. So this instinct, human instinct, is basically an animal instinct which we still carry on to kill others and to save ourselves. Now, the dawn of Neolithic age, it is also called as Neolithic revolution. And the main characteristic of Neolithic revolution, which is about 10,000 BC to 2000 BC, is a period of history which is marked by shift from hunter-gatherer lifestyle to agriculture and domestication of animals. This era is characterized by the development of farming and settled communities. They started making hutments and they started finding a place so that they don't have to move every other day and remain together at one place. And then they started domesticating animals. There are evidences of the wall paintings about 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, which show that the Neolithic people started domesticating animals for their needs. If you look at the history of the domestication of animals, you find that the chicken, turkey, duck, camel, these all were domesticated during last 5,000 years only. But before that, much before 5,000 years ago, you find so many others like cows, goats, cats, dogs, and pigs. All these animals were domesticated more than 5,000 years ago in different ages. There is yet another example. For example, dog was domesticated in Eurasia about 15,000 to 36,000 years ago. Dogs were used for, guiding, helping the shepherds or the herds of cows. The goat about 10,500 years ago. Cat about 9,005 years ago. So you can see that in different parts of the world, the domestication of animals started by the human being. And they started using those animals for agriculture, different types of animals for variety of purposes of agriculture. The evolution of agrarian society, this also started in the Neolithic phase. And the main characteristic of the agrarian society or development of agriculture started from observation of the nature, selection of the useful plants, domesticating them, starting their cultivation, and then applying breeding to develop better varieties. And here I will give you some examples. What are the consequences? How the cultivation practices started and what were the consequences of cultivation? Since I'm a biologist, I will delve a little deeper into these aspects. You will be surprised to see the maize of today and the maize of yesteryears. The wild maize was called a teosinte. And if you look at the figure of earlier time, there used to be only few grains and very thin kind of ear, which was having very few grains. But it's a consequence of thousands of years of selection that we have today's modern corn or maize. Similarly, if you look at the wild rice, wild wheat and wild barley, all these three, the progenitors, used to be very low productivity and they used to be scattered all around. And if you look at the type of the plants which were there, they were prostrate type, they were spreading type on the field, and they used to get spoiled very easily. And therefore, the selection was made for erect type of plants so that they can't be spoiled easily. And the plants which had more grains. And this is how gradually over the years we started developing agriculture, maximizing yield, maximizing productivity. That was the idea. And if you look at the domestication of vegetable crops, you see the wild mustard plant of Brassica oleracea. And this kind of plant which gave origin to variety of other vegetables which you see today, which includes kohlrabi, kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower. They are all members of the same family. It's only question of selection. And by selection, it appears they are completely different vegetables, but they belong to the same species. The fruits of yesteryears. I don't know whether you have ever seen a banana with seeds. We have become so used to banana, which is without seeds. But I have myself seen the banana, which is full of seeds. And this is the banana of the yesteryears. And our effort has been to develop most of these fruits which are without seeds because they create inconvenience in consuming them. But seeds are the origin of that plant for multiplication. If we are very fond of seedless fruits, but this actually empowers the people who can produce these seedless fruits because they get money for developing the planting material. Now, if you look at these two gentlemen, Fritz Haber who got Nobel Prize in 1918 for the synthesis of ammonia from its elements. And then Carl Bosch. The process is called Haber-Bosch process for the production of ammonia or urea. So Carl Bosch, he got Nobel Prize in 1931 to scale up ammonia production. These are the people who are credited for the increase of human population from 1.3 billion to 8 billion. Because if urea fertilizers were not there, human population would not have risen to its present level. This input, urea was the critical input in the green revolution and the survival and multiplication of human being. So on the one hand, they are given the credit. On the other hand, some people also curse them. They have been able to discover urea, which has given so huge proliferation of human population on this earth, which the earth planet itself is not able to manage them. You can see that large number of plants, when you make urea, it requires 400 degrees Celsius. And in order to create that 400 degrees Celsius, huge amount of petroleum hydrocarbons, fossil fuel has to be utilized, which eventually leads to global warming. And today there is a call that minimize the use of urea, minimize the use of this urea fertilizer, because they are causing for increase in our global warming phenomena. So the boon of one time has become bane of today. This is what we have to see, that we awarded Nobel Prize to Haber and Bosch for the discovery of urea, but today we want to get rid of the application of urea. Now, when you start growing crops at one place in your backyard, it is also not only convenience for you, for human being, it's also convenience for the insect pests. Because otherwise, if the plant, useful plant, is spread all over the wilderness, the insect pest has to hop and travel longer distances. But if you provide the crop at one place, they keep hopping from one plant to another and keep destroying the crop. And that is the consequence. The cultivation of crops led to the pest infestation of the crops. And you see that variety of pests have developed for a specific type of crops. And human society became fed up with this kind of crop losses. Now you can see so many different kind of crops were being destroyed. And one typical example is the cotton. The cotton farmers used to suffer huge losses because of the infestation of the bollworm. What happened was the human ingenuity, human invention, human innovation led to development of initially herbal pesticides and later on development of metals which were able to kill these insect pests. And later on, in 1939, emerged DDT by Swiss chemist Paul Müller, and later on followed by organophosphate insecticides and phenoxyacetic herbicides. But very soon, within a matter of about 30 years, there was a call for stopping the use of DDT officially. The person, Paul Müller, he got Nobel Prize in 1948 for discovering DDT. Look at the consequence that after 30 years, we started realizing that this was not boon for our society, it was not a boon for our agriculture, it has become a menace for the survival of human being. The huge amount of pesticides were being used without the use of mask. The poor, illiterate Indian farmers, they still use huge amount of pesticides without realizing that they are inviting cancer for them and their family. So incessant use of pesticides led to contamination of soil, water, and everything, until it was realized in 1962 by publication of the book by Rachel Carson, The Silent Spring. And then people became aware that the ponds, which used to be full of green plants, aquatic plants, these ponds were free of any plant. And when the reason was analyzed, it was found that these ponds were full of surface or agricultural runoff from the fields, which were full of pesticides. And these pesticides will not let aquatic flora and fauna to flourish in these ponds. And then people became aware, and there was a call that stop the use of pesticides. You can see the huge, all kind of adverse effect, acute and chronic health effects associated with the pesticides used at work. The headache, dizziness, neurological issues, endocrine, nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, liver damage, microbiome disruption, mental illness, name a kind of disease. Most of the diseases are being related to the overuse or abuse of the pesticides. Now, the solution was that let us shift our attention from chemical pesticides to biopesticides. A bacterium was found which was called Bacillus thuringiensis. This bacterium, if you spray on the plant, and if the caterpillar starts eating that leaf, and in the process it also eats up that bacterium, the caterpillar gets killed. So initially, in many countries, there were aerial sprays of this bacterium, Bacillus thuringiensis. In short, we call it BT also. So this bacterium was able to control this bollworm, but it was a very costly process to produce this bacterium and spray all over the agricultural fields. Now, the genetic engineers thought of making crops which were having the plants which were having the capability of producing this toxin of Bacillus thuringiensis, which was able to kill this pest, the caterpillar. So as soon as this caterpillar will eat these leaves, the pest will get killed, and its other brethren will learn that this plant is dangerous and therefore be away from that. So this was, BT crops were created. BT corn, BT cotton, BT brinjal, and many such crops were evolved. But then the lobby which stood against this unnatural GMOs, use of unnatural GMOs, and Greenpeace, all these societies, they opposed vehemently. You look at the brinjal, which is infected by the insect, and the other brinjal, which is BT brinjal, given below. This is without, without the infection, and this is because of the BT, which is present in the plant. The transgenic tool gave the ability to produce a variety of kind of crops which were good for the health. One such crop was golden rice. This is not the rice which is stained with turmeric. It is a golden rice. It is naturally so because a few genes have been engineered, and because of this, it is enriched with the vitamin A. But there is still huge opposition to use of this crop because this is a transgenic crop. There are dozens of these crops like soybean, canola, sugar beet, alfalfa, yellow squash, zucchini, papaya, cotton, all these, and still another dozens of crops, transgenic crops have been developed. The genetically engineered foods have been developed, but they are not in use, although they are used in many countries like USA, in Bangladesh, in several African countries. They have allowed the cultivation of these crops, but not in India. But still, many of these corn is coming from US, is actually BT. This is a transgenic which is coming to India indirectly and being used by us. So the Greenpeace organization opposed vehemently in Europe, and many countries have stopped use of these GMOs. Now, to overcome these fears related to genetic engineering of crops, new technologies have been developed. Again, finding a problem, that genetic engineering is not good. Can we find another way? A question. And then new technologies were developed, new principles were observed, and it was found that we can apply those principles to produce new kind of crops. So it's again ingenuity, human ingenuity. And then these crops were produced in which no foreign piece of DNA is integrated. It is only like in sickle cell anemia, you have a mutation in one nucleotide. If you correct that, then the disease is gone. So similar kind of procedure is being followed here by genome editing. And today, variety of genome edited crop plants are available. And it is considered that they are much safer. There is no reason to be afraid of genome-edited crops. And you can see the kind of precision. If you look at the tomato at the top, you can very precisely control the color of the tomato using the tools of the genome editing. Now shifting the gears from agriculture, food to mobility. There is a phrase called reinventing the wheel. Now look at the invention of the wheel. Initially, a stone was made circular, and this stone started rolling, call it rolling stone. And then people thought that they can use wood to make wheels, and then hub and spoke kind of wheels were used, and later on tire and tubes were used, and modern day, wheels are there. And therefore there are continuous incremental innovations. There was need and there was improvement. And this need-based improvement is called innovation. And therefore, on everything which you see today is a consequence of millions of innovations. You see how the wheel was utilized. Single wheel, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and four-wheelers. Still, these wheeled vehicle carriages were driven by human or animal power. For mobility, animals were used earlier. Now the use of animals with these carriages was combined, and you can see variety of carriages of number of wheeled vehicles were created. And this provided the speed and power because of the use of horse and its power. Then came another revolution which is called Industrial Revolution. And this Industrial Revolution, one of the pillars was the development of steam engine, where the shift from animal power to fossil fuel powered vehicles started. And you see different prototypes of the steam engine which was created by James Watt. Now, this vehicle was using coal. And at that time, coal was available. And you see the formation of the coal, different types of coal were there. And the coal was utilized, and it was found that coal is not so efficient, it creates so much of pollution, and therefore other fossil fuels have to be used. And the discovery of natural gas and petroleum oil and methods to extract them, dig them out were developed, and variety of kind of fossil fuels started getting in use. The most phenomenal discovery of that time was fractionation of the crude oil. One thing was to get the crude oil, the fossil fuel, and then to do the fractionation and develop variety of kind of fuels from different fractions and using them from different kind of vehicles, starting from kerosene oil, lubricating oil, to fuel oil in the ships, to petroleum gas and aircrafts. And you can see the variety of vehicles which are being driven by the fossil fuels. The consequence of this, it led to huge production of greenhouse gases. On the one hand, supporting agriculture by making use of urea, making of pesticides. Making of pesticides became easier because some of the residues of the petroleum crude, they became precursors or substrates for making the pesticides like chlorofluorohydrocarbons or the chlorobenzene, dichlorobenzene, all these benzene moiety. This came from the petroleum crude, and that is why the petroleum became source for energy. And because of this, huge amount of greenhouse gases got accumulated. Ozone hole was there, and the glaciers started melting. And you can see the situation in 2008 and 2018. What is the level of glaciers, and what is the health of the polar bear? The health of the polar bear reflects the health of the planet. And then there was a call that let us shift from chemical fertilizer and chemical pesticides to biofertilizers and biopesticides. Climate emergency was called, that there's people about 101 Nobel laureates, they came together and gave a call for global fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. And it's a kind of climate emergency. Again, plastics is yet another example. If you look at the plastics, the Charles Goodyear, who started vulcanization, and the Alexander Parkes, which produced the Parkinsign, which is the first kind of plastic of its time. And after that, in 1963, Nobel Prize was given to Carl Ziegler and Giulio Natta for paving the way for making the polythene. And similarly, in 2000, Nobel Prize was given for opening the new possibilities of plastic electronics to Alan Heeger, Alan McDermott, and Hideki Shirakawa. And you can see that our world is now dominated by plastics. In everything, there is a plastic. You can see from polystyrene, Parkinson, PVC, and polyethylene terephthalate, PET, acrylic, LDPE, polypropylene, styrofoam, all these variety of kind of consequences of development of the polymer sciences took place. And we have a large variety of polythenes. Then there was a call that there is a plastic pollution. There is a huge garbage being accumulated and action is required to mitigate this problem. Look at the situation of this plastic pollution. This plastic, microplastics are able to cross our blood-brain barrier and they are able to go into our brains. Our oceans are filled with the microplastics, and this is going to be a big menace for human health. One more example I will give you of Nobel Prize, that Alexander Fleming got Nobel Prize in 1945 for his discovery of the penicillin. He found Penicillium notatum, a mold which was able to kill a bug, Staphylococcus aureus. And then this observation led to the development of penicillin by Howard Florey, Erskine, and their colleagues at Oxford University, who turned penicillin from a laboratory curiosity to a life-saving drug. So the basic curiosity-driven observation was that of Alexander Fleming, but turning into invention was from the people in the Oxford University. And then plastics, a number of antibiotics were developed or discovered. In 2009, Ada Yonath from Israel, she got Nobel Prize for discovering the structure or solving the structure of ribosomes, together with our own Venki Ramakrishnan. And this ribosome is actually the site for protein synthesis, and it's also the site for action of a variety of kind of antibiotics. Now, based on the knowledge of the structure of ribosome, large number of antibiotics were developed. And today, we have used or abused the antibiotics so much that today there is a problem of antibiotic resistance. The bugs are developing which have multi-drug resistance, which have extreme drug resistance, and there are some which are totally drug resistant. And these kind of bugs are going to create havoc anytime in countries like India, where the population is so dense. So this discovery of antibiotic, award of Nobel Prize to Alexander Fleming and Ada Yonath, has today become a kind of menace, because abuse, misuse of antibiotics is now killing the humanity. We all know all these devices which have led to disruptive innovation. A small cell phone in our hand is a replacement of so many years of development in camera, telephones, video cassette recorders, and computers. Everything all together. The consequence is that we have our world in our palm, but we are having cognitive decline. Our dependence on these gadgets have led to cognitive decline, our mental ability. Now, we are empowering machines, losing our power, and empowering machines in the form of drones, robots, unmanned aircrafts, humanoid robots, you can see where are we heading for. We are shifting our ability to the machines, and this human versus robot debate is continuing, and there are challenges of addiction to these devices and dependence and cognitive decline, as I have already mentioned. Today, in today's time, in a country like ours, we need technologies which empower humanity by giving opportunity to everyone, not depriving. These gadgets, the artificial intelligence is feared to reduce the employment. It is able to help the countries which are having low human population, but countries which are having high density of human population require technologies which give employment to every hand. Now, another example of nuclear energy. See, in 1951, John Cockcroft and Ernst Walton, they were given Nobel Prize for their pioneer work on the transmutation of atomic nuclei by artificially accelerated atomic particles. 1944, Otto Hahn was given Nobel Prize in chemistry for his discovery of the fission of heavy nuclei. Was it a need of our times? One may say yes, because we wanted to produce energy which is without pollution. And this development led to the horrible event of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The abuse of the technology, human ingenuity, human innovation. And later on in 2005, International Atomic Energy Agency was given Nobel Peace Prize to you for development of methods for peaceful uses of nuclear energy. In 2024, Nihon Hidankyo was given a Nobel Prize. He's a Hiroshima survivor, and he was given Nobel Prize for his efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons. So see, I have given you examples that to what extent, what distance we have traveled from asking basic questions to developing very, very advanced technologies. But what has been the consequence? Have we been able to develop a civilized human being? The society which is able to use nuclear weapons, we call it a civilized human being. The people who are able to empower machines, losing all our own control of the power and passing on to the machine, are we making superhumans, or we are making supercomputers and super robots? These are the questions which we have to address in today's time. And that is why at one time, the weapons of destruction were called as weapons of peace. It is intellectual jugglery to eulogize our wrongdoings. And you can see the basis of Nobel Prize lies in the contributions of the merchant of death, who eventually transformed into a champion of peace. And I want to draw your attention to a red quadrangle at the bottom, where Alfred Nobel himself said, "I intend to leave after my death a large fund for the promotion of peace idea, but I am skeptical as to its results." You see, he could sense it, that the Nobel Prize is being created, Nobel Prizes will be awarded, but whether this work which will be recognized by the Nobel Prize will eventually lead to the welfare of the human society or not. The life-changing inventions of one time turned into uncontrollable menace for humanity. The apparent boon of yesteryears turned into a bane of present times. Now, what is the need? The journey from Homo sapiens to a civilized human being requires a shift from fossil fuel or fossil energy to biofuel and bioenergy, from chemical fertilizer to biofertilizer, from chemical pesticides to biopesticides, chemical plastics to bioplastics, chemistry to green chemistry, monoculture to diversity, and exploitation to conservation. And this will happen when we minimize our needs, ambitions, aspirations, and following the principle of reduce, reuse, recycle for our sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Milestones of human civilizations, intentions changing world, evolution of Homo sapiens to Elon Musk, domestication of animals, cereal crops, vegetable crops, boon of one time has become bane of today, acute and chronic health effects, climate emergency, and much more. Journey from Homo sapiens to civilized humans. Thank you so much, Professor Tripathi. Your words have truly added depth and meaning. Thank you so much for your words. I would love, the floor is open for the questions if anybody has any questions. Anybody would like to ask any questions?
Yes, please.
It was a splendid discourse about the journey of civilization.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a splendid discourse about the journey of civilization. I'm just reminded of a great book written by Samuel Huntington, where he talked about clashes of civilization. And his basic idea was that the future of civilization will be primarily based on the conflicts drawn on the lines of cultural dimensions and the ideological dimensions. So you very rightly mentioned in the beginning of your discourse about the role of value-based education like BHU, your alma mater. We are talking about DI, which is also a value-based institution. So how do you, and you also talked about this use and misuse of human ingenuity and innovation in terms of progressive journey of human civilization. So how do you foresee the role of value-based education in actually guiding the human civilization to make the proper use of innovation and ingenuity and creativity than going for misuse of it? Thank you very much.
Well, I am reminded of a wish of Gandhiji that there should not be any police in running a country. That's an ideal situation. But day by day we keep realizing there is more and more need of having police to control us. So the conflicts of civilizations, this is an oxymoron. To me it is an oxymoron. Civilized people should have a self-control not to get entangled into conflicts. When you call conflicts of civilization, I think these are not civilizations. At the end, the last slide I have shown the picture of Gandhi and Mahatma Buddha. And there are many more, elated people who have been advocating about minimizing the needs, giving to the society, taking care of the people, and the value-based things which we mentioned, which the institutions like DEI and Banaras Hindu University stand for. But that animalness which is present within us, that is not going away. Civilization is to get away from that animal instincts, getting away from that animalness, which is based on killing and getting killed on everyday basis. So the expectation was that as a society, as a civilization, we will evolve to a level where there will be no conflicts. That's an ideal situation. This value-based education, this goes to those who are receptive, who have that kind of sanskar, They listen to it, they respond to it, they follow to it. But there is the other lot. There is a sur and asur. Devil and angel, both are within us. And the civilization is to hone that angel which is within us, the human which is within us, and to discourage the devil which keeps cropping up again and again. So this is an incessant flight of controlling the devil and emerging as a human. I think this will continue. The value education certainly is useful, but when I see the present day institutions, I find that is the old institutions, traditional institutions, which are advocating and which are successful in promoting the value-based education. But I'm doubtful about the present day institutions, to what extent they can take this. The time is changing. We have to make effort, we don't have to lose heart. I think without that, the society will not evolve, we will not become civilized. And the first line which I said, कि इंसान को इंसान बनाया जाए, the value-based education is responsible for that. And we have to continue with that. At least a sizable proportion of the human population, if it is civilized, I think it will take care of the rest.
Just draw a parallel analogy that the Albag way of life which we live here is a simple way of life, and we don't waste here anything. We conserve the resources. We don't exploit the resources. And I think in a way it tries to contribute to the kind of situation which you are looking for, which is, as you described, would be an ideal. And that is a self-control, a self-assessment and self-realization of self-consciousness, which leads to this kind of approach, which is being practiced in the Albag way of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
World, out of which 20 are extinct and 2 are still surviving. I cannot give you the reference because I have forgotten it, but I would like to ask you a question that India, a country of diversity, a country which has promoted spiritualism in so many ways, how do you look at Indian civilization? Would you consider it to be a distinct civilization? Would you consider it to be a unique civilization or not? Thank you, sir.
Well, I think so far as I understand about Indian civilization, I think it has been full of conflicts also. But there has been a major section of the society which has been looking inwards. We have always looked outwards. Whatever our senses see and perceive, we run after that, we pursue that. But the people in India, the wise people in India, who have started realizing futility of running after the sensory perceptions and going inwards and looking at the beauty of the inner soul, they have reached to greater heights of wisdom. And as compared to the rest of the world, we have a much higher number of such realized souls. The problem is that they are spread to a larger section of our society, larger section of our population is something which is required. So far as your point of view of Indian civilization, I can see the intent that the traditional Indian civilization, where people have looked inwards, who have considered Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, who have talked about Tat Tvamasi, you are the God, you have to explore yourself. This is the kind of people who are self-realized, and if you have this kind of thinking, you will never have any conflict. Because the conflict is always for material gains, for ego, which leads to jealousy. But if we realize that soul is immortal, it is eternal, body is mortal, and this soul carries on for generations after generations, birth after birth, then people do not worry too much about the material things. They look for the higher knowledge or the true knowledge, and that is what gives them satisfaction. This is what is my personal opinion.
Thank you, sir. We are grateful for your time and wisdom, Professor Tripathi. Now I invite Professor Jandial to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Of the Dayalbag Educational Institute, I extend a deep sense of gratitude to most revered Chairman, Advisory Committee on Education, Dayalbag Educational Institutions, for his benign and munificent presence. We are deeply grateful to most respected Rani Sahibaji, whose kind presence has always been a source of encouragement to us. The Institute is deeply grateful to our honored guest and speaker for today, Professor Anil Kumar Tripathi, Director, Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Mohali, for his inspiring talk. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time and effort and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Your ideas and observations are particularly interesting and relevant to us here at Dayalbag and DEI, where organic farming, free of pesticides, is done, and air and water pollution are kept under control. Your talk reminds us that we have made great progress, but paid a heavy price for it. Here at Dayalbag and DEI, we strive for balance, a life of better worldliness. We are grateful to President DEI, Shri Gurswarup Sood, for his motivating presence, Director DEI Professor C. Patwardhan for his dynamic leadership, Registrar Professor Anand Mohan, and Treasurer Mrs. Medachlani for their unstinted support and presence. We are extremely grateful to our distinguished guests and members of the audience whose presence here today has made this occasion special and memorable. We are thankful to the teachers, staff and students of the Institute who have helped in organizing this program and making it a success. We solicit your forgiveness for errors we may have inevitably made, and we fail to find adequate words to express our heartfelt gratitude. We end this program in worshipful obeisance at the holy feet and pray for continued grace and mercy. Thank you very much.
Proceed to the norms for high tea. Thank you.
पेन ड्राइव दिया जगह के पास कोई बात नहीं।
देखना भैया कि इनका करेंगे गेस्ट का करेंगे जैसे हाँ दोनों चीज़ें जब संभाल लो या तो गेस्ट हाउस में
आपने देखा प्रोफेसर साहब ने A to Z कहाँ पर मानव पैदा हुआ, कहाँ पर प्रकृति पैदा हुई, कहाँ फल पैदा हुए, कहाँ सब्जी पैदा हुई और उसके बाद उसका अंत इस समय कहाँ तक है। यहाँ तक कि उन्होंने जो प्रोडक्शन के बारे में जो बातें बताई, इंडस्ट्रियल के बारे जो इंडस्ट्रियल चीज़ें हैं उनके बारे में बताई, क्या प्रोग्रेस हुई है, यहाँ तक कि अणु बम, परमाणु बम जिसको कहते हैं, उसका ईजाद कैसे हुआ। इस बीच में कहाँ पर किस किस को नोबेल पुरस्कार मिले, सारी चीज़ें आपने देखी और सुनी। तो मैं अब इस वीडियो चूँकि लंबा हो रहा है, सॉरी, और मैं अब ज़्यादा बोलना नहीं चाहता। आप इसको आपने पूरा देखा, मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई। अब इसको लाइक कर लीजिए और चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लीजिए। थैंक यू वेरी मच। मैं आरबी सिंह यादव।